Captain Solaris gurgled a sickening wail as the human's knife pierced his throat, realizing too late the grave mistake of provoking Earth. Mere hours earlier, the Yadaran warship Shadowblade had emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the human solar system. The massive alien craft, bristling with advanced weaponry, dwarfed the primitive human space stations and satellites orbiting the blue-green planet below. On the bridge of the Shadowblade, Captain Solaris sneered at the image of Earth on the view screen. These backward humans would submit to Yadaran rule or face annihilation. He opened a channel to broadcast his ultimatum. People of Earth, you stand on the precipice of destruction. Surrender now and your planet may be spared. Resist, and you will be made an example to the galaxy of the folly of defying the Yadaran Empire. The transmission ended. Solaris leaned back in his command chair, awaiting the human's response. Submission was the only logical choice for such a technologically and militarily inferior species. On Earth, panic gripped the nations as news of the alien threat spread like wildfire. Rioting consumed the cities as civilization teetered on the brink. In bunkers and war rooms, world leaders scrambled to formulate a response against the greatest peril humanity had ever faced. Amid the chaos, one man stepped forward. Jake Campbell, a grizzled, battle-hardened veteran, strode into the U.S. President's command center and slammed his fist on the table. "Mr. President, give me command of Earth's defenses. We'll show these alien bastards the real meaning of human resolve." The president hesitated only a moment before nodding grimly. Campbell was their best hope, perhaps their only hope. He would lead their desperate last stand against the Yadaran onslaught. As Yadaran ships began advancing on Earth, Campbell broadcast his own message to the invaders. "Attention, Yadaran fleet. This is Jake Campbell of Earth Defense Command. We will never surrender our freedom, never bow to alien tyranny. If you want our planet, you'll have to take it over our cold, dead bodies." The transmission ended. The stage was set for a battle that would decide the fate of humanity. Campbell began rallying Earth's meager forces, preparing to fight to the last man, woman, and child. The Yadaran fleet hung in the void, still and silent. On the bridge of the Shadowblade, the crew watched the unfolding carnage with mounting dismay. Fighters swarmed from Earth's surface, ripping into the alien ships with savage fury. Explosions blossomed across the Yadaran formation as human missiles found their marks. Captain Solaris squeezed the armrests of his command chair, his face twisted in a snarl of rage and disbelief. These primitive apes were tearing his fleet apart. Alarms wailed and red lights flashed as the bridge shuddered under another impact. "All ships retreat, full reverse thrust," Solaris bellowed. As the battered Yadaran fleet limped away from Earth, leaving trails of debris and leaking atmosphere, cheers erupted from human ships and planets. Against adversity, they had won. They had beaten back the alien invaders. And the hero of the hour was Jake Campbell. The grizzled veteran's face was plastered across every news feed and broadcast. His speech to the Yadaran fleet played on repeat, that defiant declaration of human determination. Campbell was hailed as the savior of Earth, the man who led them to victory against a terrifying alien foe. He didn't feel much like a savior. Jake sat in a conference room, rubbing his eyes as politicians and generals argued around him. The elation of victory was quickly giving way to grim reality. They may have won the battle, but the war was a long way to go. The Yadarans were still out there, and they would surely return with reinforcements and a thirst for vengeance. "We got lucky this time," Jake said, cutting through the chatter. "But we can't count on luck to save us next time. We need to prepare." Over the following weeks, a flurry of activity consumed the planet as humanity readied its defenses. Jake Campbell, newly appointed as the Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, worked tirelessly to rally the planet's militaries under a single banner. He needed people he could trust at his side. His first recruit was Mike Thompson, an old war buddy who'd fought alongside Jake in countless battles. "I must be crazy for signing up for this," Mike said with a wry grin as he shook Jake's hand. "But I guess I'd rather be at the tip of the spear than waiting for it to fall." Next came Dr. David Hoffman, a brilliant xenobiologist who'd been studying the few scraps of Yadaran technology they'd managed to recover. His expertise would be invaluable in understanding and countering the alien threat. As Earth braced for the next invasion, a different sort of reckoning unfolded on the far side of the galaxy. On the Yadaran homeworld, a tribunal of grim-faced leaders sat in judgment of the disgraced Captain Solaris. "You assured us these humans were primitives," one snarled. "You underestimated them, and they handed you a humiliating defeat." Solaris tried to argue that the humans were more formidable than anticipated, that their spirit and tenacity had caught the Yadarans off guard. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. The tribunal stripped him of rank and command, casting him out in disgrace. But as he stalked from the tribunal chamber, seething with rage and humiliation, Solaris's thoughts turned to revenge. He would make the humans pay for this insult. He would make Jake Campbell pay. In the shadows of the Yadaran Empire, Solaris began to gather followers. Soldiers loyal to him, officials who resented the tribunal's decree. He reached out to the fringes of Yadaran space, to dissident factions eager for a chance at power. He even made contact with the Zorgans, a ruthless reptilian species who had long coveted Yadaran territories. Solaris spun promises of wealth and dominion over the humans' planet, buying their support for his cause. On Earth, Jake Campbell surveyed the progress of Earth's defensive preparations with a mix of pride and unease. Planetary shields were being raised, weapons platforms orbited overhead, and every able-bodied man and woman was being trained for battle. But he couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't enough. The Yadarans had been caught off guard once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. His fears were soon realized as reports began filtering in of strange attacks on the fringes of human space. Outposts raided, ships ambushed by unknown alien craft. The few garbled distress calls spoke of Yadaran ships, but different somehow, emblazoned with strange symbols, and even more ruthless than before. Jake had a sinking feeling he knew who was behind these attacks. Solaris was back and he was coming for Earth. Desperate to uncover the renegade captain's plans, Jake assembled a covert team for a dangerous mission. Their target, a remote moon base, suspected to be one of Solaris's secret staging grounds. Infiltrating the base was a nerve-wracking ordeal, every shadow a potential enemy, every sound a warning of discovery. But what they found there chilled Jake to his core. The base was a hive of activity, Yadaran soldiers and Zorgan mercenaries loading weapons and equipment onto a massive fleet of ships. And there, in the midst of it all, was Solaris himself, overseeing the preparations for his revenge. Jake's team barely escaped the base with their lives, fighting their way out through waves of enemy fire. But they had the intel they needed. Solaris was amassing an invasion force, one even larger and more formidable than before, and he was almost ready to unleash it upon the Earth. The flight back to Earth was a grim one, the weight of impending war heavy on Jake's shoulders. They were out of time. Solaris's attack was imminent, and Earth had to be ready. As alarms blared and Earth's defenses snapped to high alert, Jake strode into the command center with fire in his eyes. He faced the sea of worried faces, soldiers and leaders looking to him for guidance and hope. "This is it," he said, his voice steady and strong. "This is what we've been preparing for. Solaris is coming and he's bringing hell with him. But we're ready. We're going to face him. We're going to fight him. And we're going to win. For Earth." A cheer went up from the assembled throng, a defiant roar that echoed through the base and out into the void of space. On the screens overhead, the blips of Solaris's armada moved ever closer. The final battle was about to begin. Jake's eyes narrowed as he scanned the decoded alien transmissions scrolling across the screen. The messages confirmed his worst fears. Solaris was gathering a massive invasion force, drawing allies from multiple hostile races across the galaxy. "This is bad," Mike muttered, looking over Jake's shoulder. "Real bad." Jake nodded grimly. "We can't let them reach Earth. We need to take the fight to them." He called an emergency meeting with his top advisors. As they pored over star charts and tactical readouts, Jake outlined his audacious plan. "We know where Solaris is rallying his fleet, the Frindix Nebula. If we strike now, we can catch them off guard before they're fully assembled." The ion storms in that nebula are deadly, one of the admirals protested. We'd be flying blind. Exactly, Jake said. They won't expect us to come through that maelstrom. It's our best shot at surprise. Days later, Earth's newly formed fleet dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Frindix Nebula. Crackling energy discharges lit up the swirling gases as Jake gave the order to advance. All ships, full power to shields, stay in tight formation and follow my lead. Jake's flagship plunged into the cosmic storm, the rest of the fleet close behind. Turbulence rocked the vessels as they navigated the treacherous currents. On the bridge of his command ship, Solaris lounged in his chair, watching his invasion armada assemble. A proximity alarm suddenly blared. "Sir, multiple contacts emerging from the nebula." Solaris leapt to his feet. "Impossible!" But there was no denying the swarm of human warships now bearing down on his position. Before he could react, boarding pods were slamming into the hulls of his ships. Alarms wailed as sabotage teams wreaked havoc on critical systems. "All ships, engage the humans!" Solaris roared. "Crush them!" The void erupted in weapons fire as the two fleets collided. Jake's voice rang out over the comms, calling out targets and coordinating maneuvers. "Bravo Wing, take out those cruisers. Delta Squad, cover their flank." Mike Thompson led his fighter squadron on strafing runs, picking apart the hulls of Yadarin Capital ships. "Woo-hoo! Fish in a barrel, boys!" On the edge of the battle, Dr. Hoffman and his team frantically analyzed sensor data. "There, target their power couplings. It's a weak point in their shields." Jake relayed the information to his gunners. Beams of energy lanced out, punching through previously impenetrable barriers. Yadarin ships began to falter and fall back. Solaris snarled in frustration as his allies retreated one by one. In desperation, he ordered all remaining ships to focus fire on Jake's flagship. "Sir, our shields can't take much more of this," Jake's tactical officer warned. "Divert all power to forward shields," Jake commanded. The experimental shielding held, barely. As the last of Solaris's allies fled, the Yadarin commander realized the invasion was doomed. With a curse, he ordered a retreat. "He's making a run for the gravity well," Mike shouted. "We can't let him escape." "All ships pursue," Jake ordered. Human and Yadarin vessels careened wildly through the crushing gravities of the imploded star. At point-blank range, they exchanged furious volleys. Solaris's flagship was coming apart, but still he refused to yield. With a maniacal laugh, he set a collision course for Jake's ship. "If I go down, I'm taking you with me, Campbell." Jake had seconds to react. "All power to forward shields now." The two vessels slammed together in a cataclysmic impact. Solaris's ship shattered into a million fragments. Jake's flagship groaned and buckled, systems failing across the board. "All hands, abandon ship," Jake ordered. As escape pods launched from the crippled vessel, Jake gazed out at the field of debris, all that remained of Solaris's once mighty armada. They had won the day, but at great cost, and Jake knew this was only the beginning. Humanity would face many more threats in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the galaxy. Jake's fleet limped back to Earth, battered ships held together by emergency repairs and sheer willpower. As they approached the blue-green orb of their homeworld, cheers erupted over the comms. Earth had survived. Humanity had triumphed against impossible odds. The fleet's return was met with parades, ceremonies, and endless news coverage. Jake shook hands with world leaders and gave rousing speeches about human perseverance. But even as confetti rained down, his eyes kept darting to the sky. His fears were confirmed days later. In the dimly lit control room of Earth's deep space monitoring station, a technician's voice cut through the usual chatter. "Sir, we're picking up multiple unknown signatures at the edge of our sensor range." Jake leaned over the console, brow furrowed. The blips on the screen multiplied rapidly, spreading out in all directions. "Any match to known species?" he asked. The technician shook his head. "Negative, sir. We've never seen anything like this before." Jake's stomach dropped. He'd hoped for more time, but it seemed their victory had only painted a target on Earth's back. The galaxy had taken notice, and now every alien race with a grudge or a desire for conquest was headed their way. He immediately called an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders, laying out the dire situation in stark terms. "We need to bolster our defenses now," Jake urged. "Increase military production, fast-track research into new technologies. The Yatarans were just the beginning." But his warnings fell on deaf ears. The politicians were too busy squabbling over the spoils of victory, jockeying for power in the New World Order. "The alien threat has been neutralized," one leader declared dismissively. "We must focus on rebuilding, not wasting resources on phantom menaces." Jake stormed out of the meeting, fists clenched in frustration. In his quarters, he paced back and forth, mind racing. Earth wasn't ready for what was coming. If the politicians wouldn't act, he'd have to take matters into his own hands. He called in Mike and Dr. Hoffman, laying out his audacious plan. "We take the fleet and head out beyond known space," Jake said. "Find new allies, new tech, anything that can give us an edge." Mike's eyes widened. "You're talking about desertion?" Jake nodded grimly. "I know. But if we don't do this, there might not be an Earth left to come back to." Dr. Hoffman stroked his beard thoughtfully. "The scientific potential alone is staggering. Count me in." Within days, Jake had rallied his most loyal crew members. They slipped away in the night, a ragtag fleet of human and captured alien vessels venturing into the great unknown. The journey pushed their ships to the limit. They navigated treacherous energy storms that crackled across their hulls. Spatial anomalies warped and twisted around them, threatening to tear the fleet apart. But Jake pressed on, driven by the weight of Earth's fate on his shoulders. They made first contact with bizarre new alien species, some extending tentacles of friendship, others opening fire without warning. After weeks of exploration, disaster struck. A massive alien armada ambushed the fleet, their weapons carving through shields like they weren't even there. Jake's quick thinking and the crew's valor allowed them to escape, but at a terrible cost. Half the fleet was destroyed, the survivors limping away with failing life support and depleted weapons. As they licked their wounds, Jake made a chilling discovery. They had stumbled into the domain of the Orcs Confederation, an ancient empire with a ruthless reputation. "We can't turn back now," Jake told his weary crew. "The Orcs might be the key to saving Earth. We push forward." They managed to infiltrate a fortified Orcs outpost, Jake leading a small team to hack into their central database. What they found chilled him to the bone. "My God," Dr. Hoffman whispered, scrolling through the data. "These biological weapons, they could wipe out entire species." Jake's eyes sharp as he read further. The Orcs saw humanity as a plague to be exterminated, Earth as the first stepping stone in their galactic conquest. "We have to stop this," Jake said. "Alert the fleet. We're going to hit their bioweapons lab and shut it down for good." But as they prepared to strike, alarms blared throughout the outpost. On the monitors, a vast armada of Orcs warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, weapons charged and aimed directly at Jake's position. The final confrontation was about to begin, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. The acrid stench of burning electronics filled the air as Jake Campbell strode onto the bridge of his flagship. Alarms blared, drowning out the frantic chatter of his crew. "Status report!" Jake barked, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Sir, we've located the Orcs bioweapons facility," his XO replied. "Defenses are heavy, but we've identified a weakness in their sensor grid." Jake nodded, his mind racing through potential strategies. "Prep all ships for stealth approach. We hit hard and fast." Minutes later, Jake's fleet dropped out of warp, their stealth systems straining to mask their approach. The Orcs outpost loomed before them, a sprawling complex of alien architecture. "All ships, fire at will," Jake ordered. The void lit up as precision beams lanced out from the human vessels, striking key targets across the outpost. Explosions blossomed in silence, chunks of debris spinning off into space. On the ground, Mike Thompson led his strike team through the chaos. They sprinted across alien terrain, dodging geysers of noxious gas and patches of carnivorous vegetation. "Watch your step," Mike shouted as one of his men narrowly avoided a pool of acid. "These bastards designed this whole place to kill us." They fought their way through twisting corridors, exchanging fire with enraged Okari warriors. The aliens were tall, spindly creatures with multiple arms, each wielding a different weapon. Mike's team pushed forward, their objective clear: the Central Data Core. They had to retrieve the intel on the Okari's bioweapons program before the whole place went up in flames. Just as Mike breached the final security door, his comm crackled to life. Jake's voice came through, tight with tension. "Mike, we've got a problem. A massive Okari fleet just dropped out of warp. We're completely surrounded." Mike's blood ran cold as he processed the implications. "Copy that. We've got the data. Heading to extraction point now." But even as Mike's team raced back through the crumbling facility, Jake was making the hardest decision of his life. "All personnel, abandon ship. I repeat, abandon ship. Make for the escape shuttles." The human fleet erupted into chaos as crew members scrambled for the shuttles. Okari weapons fire tore through space, ripping apart ship after ship. Mike and his team barely made it to a shuttle, watching in horror as their fleet disintegrated around them. Through the viewport, he saw Jake's ship still fighting, still buying time for the others to escape. "Jake, what are you doing?" Mike shouted into his comm. "Get out of there." But Jake didn't respond. Instead, Mike watched as the remaining human shuttles turned, on a collision course with the massive Okari flagship. In a blinding flash, Jake's shuttle disappeared into the void shield of the alien vessel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, in a silent explosion that seemed to bend the very fabric of space, the Okari flagship vanished. As the light faded, Mike found himself on the bridge of the last surviving human warship. Around him, the few remaining crew members stared in shock at the devastation. Dr. Hoffman's voice broke the silence. "I've analyzed the data we recovered. The Okari. They plan to wipe out all other life in the galaxy. They see us as a contamination to be purged." Mike looked out at the sea of approaching Okari ships, each one a harbinger of Earth's doom. He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "All right, people, we've got a job to do. Let's show these Okari bastards what humanity is made of." The crew snapped to attention, ready to face whatever came next. As the Okari ships closed in, Mike gave the order that would decide the fate of Earth and all of humanity. "All hands, battle stations. We make our stand here."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.